Today's gospel is often referred to as the bent woman. It appears only in Luke and is one of 14 healing stories. For Luke, healing and forgiveness and Jesus' relations with women are central themes. When Jesus inaugurates his ministry in the synagogue at Nazareth, he proclaims that it will be a time of healing and freedom. But as we know, and as he surely knew, it was also a time of controversy. It might be helpful to understand why the Sabbath and controversies about the observance of the Sabbath were so critical in Jesus' ministry. The command to keep holy the Sabbath day is from the very origin of the Judeo-Christian tradition, because God rested on the seventh day after the work of creation, and so the Lord blessed the seventh day and made it holy. We become holy by imitating God's own holiness. In the time after the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem, when the Gospels were written, and there was no longer sacrifice, the observance of the Sabbath and other holidays became even more central in rabbinic Judaism. Perhaps you remember how you and your family kept the Sabbath when you were growing up. Mass, Sunday dinner, family time. Most stores were closed, and the usual work of the week, except perhaps for homework, was absent. My strongest memory was of the Sabbath at Zionist summer camp, a camp experience created to mimic the life of an Israeli kibbutz. On Friday afternoon, we all changed into entirely white clothes, had a special dinner with singing at the table, and welcomed the Sabbath our queen. On Saturday, we went to synagogue in the morning and rested and swam in the afternoon. After dinner was my favorite service, called Havdalah, the service to bid goodbye to the Sabbath and welcome the new week, with a special braided candle, a cup of wine, and a spice box whose fragrance was to bless the new week. From Friday afternoon to Saturday night, time was different. Life was different. Did it seem holy to a child? Well, perhaps not, but it was definitely apart from the rest of the week. So this respect for the Sabbath has deep roots, and they are still flourishing today. When I hear my modern Israeli cousin answer the phone on Saturday, not with hello, but with Shabbat Shalom. Controversies about what is permitted and not permitted on the Sabbath are central to the Gospels and to Jesus' ministry. They tell us a number of things about Jesus and what he believed. He heals both women and men, a sign of the universalism of his reign. He heals in sacred space, the synagogue, and in secular space, the road on which he was traveling, a sign that everywhere is indeed sacred space. He heals the little ones, the poor, the marginalized, and oftentimes contrasts these with the rulers, the scholars, and the religious authorities. While this puts him in conflict with the religious authorities, it is his healing on the Sabbath that stirs the most controversy. We know that the rabbis of Jesus' time did allow healing on the Sabbath if it would save a life. We know from Jesus' words in this passage that they allowed the compassionate treatment of their animals on the Sabbath, even when it involved what could be considered work. What he challenges them with is a reinterpretation of Sabbath observance, a truly radical position, subordinating legal observance to the needs of women and men. He is not anti-Sabbath or anti-Torah, but he reinterprets the law in a way which elevates healing and compassion over legal observance. Being healing and compassionate are the ways we imitate God and grow in holiness. From the beginning of his ministry, healing and liberation are fundamental to Jesus' mission. Simeon had predicted that he would be a sign of contradiction, and isn't he still? As we struggle in the church with what can be orthopraxis, correct practice, and what cannot, with how to keep the Sabbath in our time, in our families. With the call we hear to liberation, inclusion, and freedom in a church which moves with such frustrating slowness. How to be healers and people of inclusion in this world. Do you want to be healed? Do you want to be free? He continues to ask us. With the bent woman, as we grow in freedom, do we too stand up erect and glorify God?